Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hometown Heroes. This is Mary Staffeld and Rick Irving, my incredible co-host. Always love visiting with Rick and doing this show. So we're really looking forward to today to hear from our friend John Salerno. And John and I recently did another podcast because I was on his podcast, 99% Radio Network. And I'm sure John is going to tell us all about that and all about his life and what he's done, because you have lived quite the life, my friend.
Well, first off, let me thank you guys for both of you guys for allowing me to come on the show. I follow your show, I share your show, I watch it, and all your guests are probably much more interesting than I am. But I want to thank you guys for allowing me to be on Hometown Heroes.
Well, you're pretty interesting, John. I mean, you have lived a very interesting life, and you're an old hand at this podcasting and your radio talk show host and a little bit of everything else. So,
I was never really into faith, but after I moved here to Texas, God has put me in some really blessed places to meet great people that I was able to work off of, and they built me up, because I was never a radio host. I never was interested in radio. And just by chance, I meet somebody. We decided to do stuff for non-for-profits. We start Mad Radio, Making a Difference Radio. And I think that's where I first met you, Rick.
It is.
Back then with when I was working with Megan King. And it just progressed from there. And then after that, I met Sam, and we did a badge of honor. And then I met the other guys from the biker clubs, and we started 99. And it was a blessing how our paths crossed.
It is. And it's just those little things where our paths cross. And it's just, here years later, I've been on your show. Mary's been on your show. A lot of people from our roll call has been on your show. Yeah. I think we talked about freedom mobility. Yep. And of course, I think the Air Power Council or the Air Power Foundation, you're just a great guy to help all these nonprofits that help our veterans and first responders. So we appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you. The mainstream media doesn't cover it enough, and that's what I like about all the online podcasts, the radio shows that we can get off our social media, because it highlights what great things so many people are doing in the community. And, when we watch the mainstream media, you think the world is coming to an end. Mm-hmm. We're so divided and everybody hates each other. But then you speak to people that are doing great in their community, and it builds you back up. It gets you out of that negative aspect, and you go, wow, there are great people out here. So that's why I love your show. I love all these podcasts that uplift other things. Makes it just benefits everybody.
It does.
That's what I come from a first responder background. I did 35 years collectively between the fire department, police department, and EMS. And, we all battle. We all have our different battles. And it's a healing path. When you can give back to somebody else, when you can see a smile, it's not all about the money. It's a smile on that face that really pays it forward.
And to see them having fun. We were just at One Tribe Foundation, had a motorcycle rally, and to see all those people and out there enjoying being together and riding their bikes on a pretty, I think it's like a 50-mile ride.
Yep.
You and I kind of stayed back at the camp.
Well, someone's got to cover it.
That's right.
And like I told you that day, there was probably maybe, I think they said somewhere near 300, about 280 bikes there, and you look over the crowd and you go, every person here has a different opinion. Every person here has a different political view, right? But they're all here for a common cause. And it wasn't about politics. It wasn't about who's right or who's wrong. It was about healing somebody in need. And that's what really brings these community events together, because everybody sets aside everything else. They forget about everything, and they're just there for one common cause and one purpose.
That's right, because, you know, places like that, politics is set aside. Everybody's just the same there. You know, they're there to have a good time.
It's humanity. And that's what we got to get back to. It's just basic humanity, just loving each other for who you are, not for what you think or your opinion. Just be acceptable of everybody.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, one nation under God, and that's what it's all about. And like I said, I'm not very religious, but man, I start feeling it.
Yep. And you came to Texas from New York, didn't you?
Yes.
And Mary came to Texas from Chicago.
And I'm gonna give her kudos right now, because yes, Chicago has better pizza.
that had to hurt like that. He was digging deep. That hurt.
Yeah, not your deep dish, but your regular pizza. I didn't like the deep dish; it was just too doughy. Me and Sam went out to Chicago to do a workshop for the Chicago PD a couple of years ago when they had a cluster of suicides. So we went out there to do a workshop, and they were all joking with me. They're like, "So what pizza is better?" and this, that, and the other thing. And they thought I was going to say New York, and you know, I got to say, you guys nailed it on the pizza.
Yeah, you have pretty good pizza. A lot of people think that the only Chicago pizzas that's the real fat with all the stuff inside and two crusts. That's not my favorite, but
no, there's
a lot better pizza than that.
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's better than the frozen pizza at Walmart.
Oh my goodness, Rick. I hope you don't eat frozen Walmart.
No, I don't.
Oh, please, yeah, don't do that. That will kill you slowly.
Yes, for sure.
So, New York, and you were EMT, firefighter, and then a New York detective, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, when I was a kid, I come from a single parent family. You know, my dad was an alcoholic. My mom was struggling, working two jobs. I grew up with two older sisters. They were, 15 years older than me. I was kind of like that oops baby. And, so I was a little rebel when I was 13, 14 years old, always get in trouble. But the unique thing about Long Island is that the fire departments out there, there's 156 different fire departments, volunteer fire departments out there, because they no paid, but that's what covers all the communities on Long Island. But in those fire departments are career firefighters from FDNY, career police officers with the NYPD and the surrounding neighborhoods. You had EMTs, paramedics that worked career jobs in the city. So they were mentors. And the programs they ran in, they have a junior brigade. It's almost like an explorer program. And I joined that when I was like 15 years old. And I met some terrific mentors that guided me in the right direction. And I really liked I started riding the ambulance, started riding the fire truck when I became 18. And I fell in love with community. And I fell in love with giving back and helping people. So I took my EMT test, and there was a opening in New York City for New York City EMS. I applied, went to their academy, and I worked there for about 3 years in East New York, Brooklyn. Got a lot of experience, saw a lot of trauma, and then I said, let me go take the police test or the fire test, and I took both of them. I took the FDNY and I took the NYPD. The NYPD called first, and I went right in, and I that's just started from there. Made a detective a couple of years later. Went into a lot of investigative fields, into narcotics and robbery, and then the mob infiltrated some of the bosses in the mob families, and then a severe injury caused me to force retire.
So you've experienced a lot of trauma. I mean, just taking care of people, watching people suffer and sometimes die. And that just kind of works on you, I think. I mean, I was a nurse in the Army, and I can remember real vividly those people that were in bad shape, those people that died, and it's not anything that seems to go away. So
No, but back then it was even on the police department, it was the suck it up attitude. It was, just man up or woman up, whatever you want to, whatever the right term is. And you pushed it all down. So, post-traumatic stress really wasn't a thing. And I didn't know it. I didn't know that I had compounded trauma. I didn't know I was stacking trauma all the way back to my childhood. I'm a victim of ACEs, acute childhood adversities, and it actually came out when I started seeing anger issues and I started seeing different things after 9/11. And, my wife just turned around and said, we got to get out of New York. You need a fresh start. And that's when we moved to Texas. I said, let's go. And I never looked back.
And so whenever 9/11 happened, you were already retired from the police department, or were you?
Yes, I was retired from the police department. I was still, I was an assistant chief with the Farmingdale Fire Department at that time when 9/11 hit.
Okay. And that day you went to the Twin Towers.
Yes. Yep. I remember, everybody knows what they were doing on 9/11. I actually just got up. I was having a cup of coffee and I was putting on my shoes when the first plane hit. I saw it on the news. Went down to my firehouse, which is a couple blocks from where I lived. And, talking to the dispatcher there. And as we were watching TV, the second plane hit. And when that happened, I said, we better start gearing up. Something, we may get called in for this because we would get called in mutual aid for them sometimes. So guys started coming down to the firehouse at that point. We started putting a game plan together, started putting teams together. And then around the afternoon, we got called in. Probably around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They said, all right, start mobilizing to New York City. So we were probably 30 miles from New York from Farmingdale. So we caravanned in. We went. We mobilized to Shea Stadium. A lot of volunteer fire departments mobilized at Shea Stadium, and then they started deploying them to different houses throughout the city. We got chosen because we had a rescue truck. We got chosen, and we went right to Ground Zero. We went to Vesey Street. We parked on Vesey Street, which was right down the block from 10 truck and 10 engine, which sat right across the street from the towers. And, like I said, there was no rhyme or reason. There was no command structure when we showed up. And it was, you just got to do what you got to do. And we went right into search and rescue mode.
So there was still a lot of chaos going on because, we didn't know if we were going to get attacked some more or what happened. And so you just went right in and started working.
Yeah, we started doing a search and rescue. We figured we would find somebody. We figured but as we walked around the pile, it was pretty evident that you didn't see any computers, you didn't see any desks, you didn't see anything. It was just dust, and everything just got pulverized. So then we started climbing into voids, going down into climbing into voids where we could see if anybody was trapped. But it was so dusty, it was hard to see. It was getting to nightfall at that point. And I'll remember we were on the pile, and an F-14 or an F-16 fighter plane came over the area. Everybody heard it coming, but nobody knew what it was. We thought, just like you said, we thought it was another attack coming in. So everybody started running, taking cover. But then we finally found out it was one of ours. And then we worked through the night and into the next day and constantly. So
a lot of fatigue too. I mean, you were kind of juiced up with adrenaline because you wanted to go out there and save some people. And then as the hours wore on, you weren't finding people, were you?
No, we didn't find anybody, but if somebody heard something, or if somebody found a boot, or if somebody found something, the whole pile would go quiet, and everybody would converge on that area and start digging and start trying to see if there was anybody alive. And then I think it was around, may have been around 4 o'clock in the morning. My memory is a little sketchy on that. Somebody heard something, or somebody heard a voice, and they would do these big bucket brigade lines from the top of the pile, because the pile was probably 6-7 stories high.
Wow.
You know, it didn't look like that, but it really was. You know, on a grade, that's how it was. So everybody got into a line, and they were doing bucket brigades and moving stuff, and they ended up finding those 2 Port Authority officers that they ended up pulling out alive, and we ended up helping you know, in that brigade, bringing the stretcher down.
Wow. Holy cow.
100 people on the pile at that point.
Oh my gosh.
Just can imagine the piles being that high, and then it was dangerous walking through there because
the fires were still going on underneath us, and they burned for, I guess, weeks and months. There was no water. But, you know, when they found those 2 Port Authority officers, it really raised spirits that somebody else was going to be alive, that they would find other people in the rubble. And sad to say, I don't think they pulled anybody out after that. I don't think any more survivors out of that.
Now in your life now, you have a podcast with one of our friends, Sam Horwitz, and she was with the Secret Service, and she was there also, and now she's here in Texas. So it's one of those things where your paths cross someplace, and now y'all are working together to help awareness and help people learn to cope and deal with the post-traumatic stress, because both of you were exposed to so much.
Yeah, and, you know, when paths cross for a reason, but you should never miss an opportunity to do something in your community, because you never know who you're going to meet. And the way me and Sam, our connection happened was, me and Megan King were covering, remember when the 7 officers got shot in Dallas?
Yeah.
Well, they had a big fundraiser event. All the motorcycle clubs had a big fundraiser event at Strokers in Dallas to raise money for the families. So me and Megan went down to Strokers to just cover the event, you know, and we started talking to some of the biker clubs out there. And one of the biker clubs turned around, we started talking to like, oh, you're from New York, blah, blah, blah. They knew Sam, and they were like, well, you should have this lady on your podcast, Mad Radio, because she was at 9/11 too. And I was like, great, let's connect. And I gave him my information. Sam called me up, and we've been partners and friends ever since. And we've built a nice nonprofit to help other first responders with a badge of honor. And we go out and do our workshops. And, you know, so it's weird how, if we didn't go to that event, where would we have badge of honor? If we didn't meet, if, you know, circumstances put you in you know, even bad circumstances put you in a place where you can bring a good opportunity out of it.
Yeah, they do.
You know, that's what it's all about. Never miss an opportunity to do something. Don't sit in a couch all day.
Yeah, go out and make a difference, right? And that's what you do through your life. You've made a difference. I can't imagine being, you know, there 9/11 and what you saw, but yet, you know, like you said, humanity. If we look at each other the right way and not about politics and all the other things that divide, you know, we can come together and we can do bigger and better things for people.
Yeah, just like what you guys do with Hometown Heroes and Mary and Rick, what you guys do with Roll Call. You know, even Roll Call started out with what, 11 people, 15 people, veterans. The word got out, and now you're 500 strong.
Yeah,
right?
for a luncheon, we have about almost 1,800 on our roster.
Think about the difference that you guys are making in our veterans' lives each and every day, our younger, our older. I mean, just couple people meet for lunch, and look where it went. It's an amazing organization that helps so many. you know, and that started from a luncheon.
Yep, doesn't take a lot, right?
Yep.
You get it out there and get something started, and then you just see where God takes you. Really, is kind of the way I look at it. Is, you know, like you said, the opportunities are going to present themselves. You can either go into the opportunity and take advantage of it, or you can walk away and wonder, what if? You know,
Right.
what
And
if you hadn't, right? What if you hadn't come to Texas? And, you know, I'm kind of curious still, since you said you can't, your wife said, we got to get out of here. What made you come to Texas? Why not some other state?
That's a funny story.
I think you made a good decision, as did I.
That's a funny story because, you know, New Yorkers will move in a couple of different directions. You know, they're either going to go to like the Florida,
Yep.
right, or like we like to gamble, we like the casino aspect, so we were going to go to Vegas. So we had three choices. We were like, Texas, Vegas, or Florida. And Florida, we were like, the hurricanes, we don't want to go down there. And then we were thinking about Vegas, and we had young kids at the time. I'm like, one's going to end up on a stripper pole, and the other's going to be a blackjack dealer. But really not a good atmosphere for kids, you know. So we said, screw it, let's go to Texas. And it really was the best decision that we made. If I would have stayed in New York, I don't know if I would still be around. You know, post-traumatic stress snuck up on me. And, you know, I had my bouts 3 years ago. You know, I went to take my life, and thank God.
I remember that, and that was just a devastating time for you, and you know, your whole tribe was there to support you. So
yeah, it was you know, and you know, that's why I try to raise awareness for post-traumatic stress, because, you know, it was like that whole day was a wonderful day. You know, I had no stress, no nothing, but I had those inner feelings a little bit, and then, you know, one thing just sparked it and spiraled me down. And, you know, any first responder, any veteran knows that one thing, and it throws you into that rabbit hole, and Pandora's box opens up inside, and, you know, it's from there, it's beyond your control. The pain is just, it's too much. And so many feel that pain. And it may not be, you know, it may not be something, a visual from a trauma that you've seen. It could be words that somebody said, an odor that you smell. We have so many different senses in our bodies. It could be a sound. It could be the way someone says something to you could set you off. And that's why getting the right mental health treatment is so important, to learn how to cope with different situations. I can't stress that enough.
Going back to 9/11, you didn't just experience all that, but you lost friends that day because of your involvement with the police department, the fire department. There were people that were in those buildings that you knew. And so then you had that grief to go through, and probably, you know, sometimes it's like, why didn't it happen to me? You know, it happened to them.
Survivor's guilt is tough. Yeah. I don't think I experienced survivor's guilt. I don't, you know, processing traumas back then were different. Like I said, we just stacked them. We just went on. Like if you ask me a lot of things about 9/11 and being on the pile and doing certain things, my memory is very foggy on that. Maybe it's suppressed, you know, but everybody that was there that day, right after we started funerals 3 days later, 4 days later, you know, and the funerals were every single weekend or every single day. So there were guys, I mean, I went to about 35 funerals within a span of a couple of months. There were people that went to hundreds of funerals. And just going to a funeral, one funeral, is traumatic. Going to hundreds of funerals, and like I said, I didn't go to hundreds. I went to about 30, 35 funerals.
Wow.
But there were guys that went to hundreds of funerals. And that takes a toll on the human body if you're not processing it right.
Yeah.
That's, it kind of makes you think about your own mortality too. It kind of gives you no meaning to life anymore, and that's what makes suicide so I don't want to say easy, but an option for a lot of veterans and first responders, because they've seen so much death, it doesn't really scare them anymore.
Yeah. And folks are still, and hopefully you're not having any effects, but so many people that were on the pile and that were involved in that, even still now are dying from the illnesses they got from all of what you guys, nobody was thinking about, oh, I better have a mask or I better do this. All you're focused on is there somebody there I can save? And so not thinking about your own health. And you guys really put yourself in the line there too. And so many of those folks now have died from those effects.
We lost about, I want to say 410 first responders between the collapse, between fire, police. They've surpassed that just in the medical issues. Over 500-600 have already died from various types of cancers. And, and there are thousands right now that are still battling different disease from that pile. The asbestos, the fiberglass, all that stuff that they were breathing in. Knock on wood, I've had a clean bill of health.
Yeah, that's great.
And like a lot of things where there's all this death, destruction, good things come out of it, because there's a lot of nonprofits that the families of some of those fallen firefighters and law enforcement officers, they've created nonprofits like the Tunnel to Towers.
Yep.
And they do great work. And then I don't know if it's the Travis Manion that we've been to before. I don't remember was he involved in that?
Travis Manion went back to Travis Manion was I think he was in the Air Force, I believe, or Marine.
Okay.
I don't remember when
he wasn't
Marine. And he was actually out of service. He was actually he was done with his service, and 9/11 happened, and he felt the need to go back. And truthfully, and what I hear from that story, because I go to the Travis Manion that run all the time every year, the story behind it, and this comes from his sister, is that he was at a football game, and he said, "I'm going to re-enlist and go back." Because that's when I guess it was the Afghanistan war was starting, or Iraq war.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "You're out." And they were like, "We don't want you to go back because you did your service." They were like, "Well, what if I push you down the stairs, Travis, and you break a leg? You can't go back." And then he turned around and he says, "Well, if not me, then who?" And you kind of got to live by those words. Those words are really, really powerful. If not me, then who? And who's going to step up? Who's going to protect? Who's going to fight for this country? And we have to teach the generations coming up right now that without your service, without you doing right by our country, it's going to fall. The older generation can't do this anymore. So that's why we have to highlight the good things of what our military veterans do, what our first responders do on a daily basis. Kids today don't see it because they're on these YouTube channels, they're on social media where everything is negative or biased or divided. We have to bring these kids and let them be their independent thinkers and show them. I went to the Vintage Aviation Museum last weekend with the Battling Betties. And I met some wonderful ladies there, young kids that are so into aviation and they want to go into ROTC and they want to go into the Air Force and they want to be fighter pilots. And it was so inspirational to see that these young girls, because they had good mentors, they have good parents that are bringing them to these events so they can meet the elder generation. They can meet these veterans. They can meet these heroes and speak with them. And that's what we need to do more of that.
Yeah. And that's such a great point, because what happens is they see the sports figures glamorized, and the actors and all the Hollywood types are all glamorized, and they make all this money, and they go, why would I want to be police or fire or military or, teacher or any of these things? Because it's not a glamorous job, and you don't get paid that much. And, they're not learning that patriotism in school. And that's why, a lot of what we do with taking the veterans out to speak at the schools and to speak in front of organizations is, how do we help them understand that freedom really is not free? It was bought at a price, and the price is the blood that has been shed by all of the people before us in all of those lines of work that, some people don't, I'm better than that, right? But you're really not. And without people like you and me and Rick and others that were willing to sign that blank check, we're willing to give our lives for somebody we don't even know, then those kids today, their whole lives would be entirely different than they are. And so if we don't teach them, then they don't want to come in the military, and they don't want to serve. And we really have to fix that, because we need great people in the military. That's such a great. Yeah. When
I graduated high school, and it was back in '85, I can tell you most of my graduating class, a lot of the guys out of there, were already signed up and ready to go into the service. It was that type of era. They were like, we're going into the Marines, we're going into the Air Force, we're doing this. It was, a path to a degree, to a career, to something. And I don't know if we don't highlight that enough in schools anymore. If we don't show that, instead of going to pay $80,000 a year for some degree that you're probably never going to use, right? Go do something good for 4 years, go into the military, serve your country, come out with a trade, come out with a skill, come out with, self-independence and esteem, and be the person you really are. They don't understand that the military and first responders, they build such great people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we don't have recruiters in schools so much anymore. Back in the time I was in school, I don't know about Rick, but in the 70s, late 70s, when I was in high school, recruiters were at the school all the time.
Yep.
And and you saw them, and they were sharp, and they looked good in their uniform, and they carried themselves well, and they were confident. To your point, they were confident. You could tell they had great self-esteem, and they could explain to you what the benefits of joining were. And then Reagan, so, in the mid 80s, of course, by then Reagan had really kind of re-solidified that sense of patriotism that we lost so much of with Vietnam. And so that inspired more people to want to come in. But, we have to get back to those things. And, that's the challenge today.
But you said it too, Mary. Everybody's glamorized by the actors, the athletes, and everybody wants to be a TikTok star and make all this money on putting videos together or disrupting crowds. And you know what? Being an athlete, if you have the talent, or being an actor or a playwright or whatever, those are great, but they're not. That's a 1 in a million shot for a lot of people.
Right.
You know what? Have that as a secondary. It's a great focus, great secondary thing. But you know what? You want to make sure you want to follow a path that's going to serve you right at the end of the day. That's why all these people get nervous when they were going to ban TikTok. They were like, "Oh, how am I going to make money now?" Or how am I?
But I'm an influencer. That's how I make my money. Oh my goodness! I never had TikTok. I don't care to have TikTok, but Lord knows. My granddaughter, she's going to graduate the oldest will graduate this year, and I think she lives on, I think it's like this, the constant TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even our actors that and our athletes that are able to influence our youth, right? They should be spreading this word.
Mhm.
They should be out there going, listen, this is a good dream, but you know what? You need this. You need to do this. And they're not using their voices. Not many of them. I don't want to say, but
Right.
many of them aren't using their voices the way they should. I've had Mike Kislyak, former Dallas Cowboy, on our show, and he takes what he has, his voice as a Cowboy, and he spreads that word out all the time. But he can't do it alone.
Right.
He tries. There are some athletes and there are some stars that go out there and they try to raise up our youth, but we need more of them to step up. They have the voice, use it.
We need a balance because we've got all these people that are influencing them that might not be influencing for good. And then down here, we've got the people that need to be influencing them. We need to kind of have more of those good influencing people.
Well, blame that on, we got to blame that too on our media. And that's why these podcasts and these radio social media shows are great, because they highlight stuff. We just had four Harris County deputies take their own life, right? In a span of 6 weeks. That's an issue, right? Can you imagine if four Hollywood stars took their life? It would make mainstream. It would be all over the 5 o'clock news. It would be on every TV channel. It would be all over the place, right? I mean, look, Gene Hackman, and God rest his soul, and his wife, they passed away in the house, right? It was on the news for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? A deputy who's gets shot, nobody knows about it.
That's true. Very true.
And the work that you and Sam are doing is so vital, because you're going out there and you're making people more aware of the issues that are out there, the issues that they probably have, and how to cope with it, how to deal with it, where to get help. Well,
that's it. We bring the resources to them. The stigma is still there, and a lot of people are a little scared. So when they come to a badge of honor, or they go to another nonprofit like One Tribe or something, they feel it's safe. It's a safe place to speak. A lot of these EAP programs that some of these agencies offer are not confidential. They're not safe, and they're just not built correctly. So when they go to One Tribe, or they come to Badge of Honor, or they go to equine therapy outside, or they go to Heroes on the Water, or they do one of these other ones, they are able to feel safe in an environment. And we just got to spread the resources out there. We got to let them know that it's available to them. Hunting with soldiers, hunting with soldiers. Gordon Melton, what an amazing thing he does, taking these guys out for hunting and fishing excursions. It lets the combat vets bond together, and over a weekend, he goes, they'll come into a hunting excursion, and nobody will talk. But 10 minutes later, once they get all in a group, they're sharing stories, they're laughing, they're hugging, and they're bonding. And believe it or not, that's where healing starts. That's where
absolutely, absolutely.
And I'll work with
alone. They're like, oh, you feel that too? Oh, you went through that too? You're on your third wife? Yeah, me too. Oh, that's great. I felt I was the only one. But it makes them feel like they normalize it within their own community, and it's like, I drank too much. Well, so did I. Maybe in somebody else's world that is looked down on, but in our world, it was a coping mechanism that got us through. So it was okay. The demons that certain of these guys see, nobody else sees. So they feel, wow, somebody else feels this same pain. I'm not alone. I'm not by myself.
And
And that's what it's all about.
there's so many things that you're involved in, like the bridge here in Fort Worth, the bridge over in Rockwall. Is that where the other
Yeah.
bridge is?
Mhm.
And you've really helped make awareness about the suicide by doing the bridge walk. So tell us about the bridge walk.
Well, the bridge walk was actually started. A lot of people give me credit for this. I did not start this. I did not start Walk the Bridge. I just used my voice to get it out there. Being the giddy that I am, the Italian guy that I am.
You did a good job getting your voice out, because I went to, when we had Alan West, and I guess it was at a kind of a groundbreaking or something and I mean, there were a lot of people there, and then
Yeah.
everybody walked the bridge. And
Yeah, now First Help built a beautiful monument out there, a beautiful memorial out there. But Jeffrey Gray was he's a Marine, and he would walk that bridge every day.
he still does too.
Huh?
He still does too.
Still does. He's faithful to the cause whenever he can. He's getting a little older. His knees aren't as good as they used to be, but he still does it faithfully. Doesn't matter the weather, So he started walking it when he was overweight, and he started doing it for health reasons. But then he started carrying the American flag, and he started walking for our brothers and sisters in arms. And he was his mission. And when I was with Third Watch, the motorcycle club, the guy said, "Hey, he walks the bridge. We should do something for veteran and first responder suicide." So I said, we approached Jeffrey and we said, "Hey, you mind if we walk with you?" And we start, and it just built from there. So it was one person's idea to walk that caused another idea, and now it's global. I mean, they're walking in the UK, they're walking in Czechoslovakia, they're walking in Italy, they're walking in now here, Destin, Florida. They're starting another bridge walk in the Catskills in New York. They walk in Montana. These walks are starting up all over the country, and it's saving lives. And it's just getting out. It's just connecting with other people. So I got to give all the credit to Jeffrey Gray. We were just built up on an idea, and we had a community behind us, and it grew. So it's just no one takes credit for it. It's a walk. Can't get.
And you do it once a month is it on the 22nd in Rockwall?
No, right. We used to be on the 22nd. The only place that still does it on the 22nd of every month is Montana.
Okay.
They still do it on the 22nd of every month. But because the 22nd sometimes fell on a Sunday, a Wednesday, or it fell on a Thursday, people were just getting home from work. So we started doing it the third Sunday of every month.
Okay. And when do you do the Fort Worth walk on the 7th Street?
That's the third Sunday of every month at 3 o'clock. We meet at the EECU building. And then we take a small walk over the 7th Street Bridge. We walk and honor our veteran, our first responders on the memorial wall over there. We have somebody plant a flag in the garden over there. We say a prayer and we walk back. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour, and people get to connect with each other.
Our 7th Street Bridge is not a long walk, not like the Rockwall Bridge. So.
No, yeah. The Rockwall, they do a mile out and a mile back, but you don't have to do a mile out. You walk what you can. No one says you have to walk, or you can build up to that mile. If you can walk 50 feet and then 50 feet back to the parking lot, or even not even walk, just be in the group of people that are going to walk, right? And just be around them. It's still healing, and it's not all about post-traumatic stress with our veterans and our first responders. This past walk, we had a cancer survivor out there. She's battling cancer, and she said, I want to be connected with other people that feel pain. And we walked and we talked. Even though I don't have cancer, I listened. I listened to her speak about her issues of the day and what she goes through. And it was relieving to her. So that's what it's all about. It's just having a kind ear and let them vent, because sometimes the families don't want to hear it anymore, or they don't have families to vent to.
Right.
You know? And now they can vent to a stranger who's going to be compassionate and empathetic, and give them a hug. They're getting a hug by a stranger.
And I've never heard of this before, but now I want to start adding this to my calendar, because I've never heard of this. So this is why we do this show, because most of the time Rick and I have heard of almost everything. And Rick probably knew about this, but I didn't.
Oh.
And I think that there are some of our roll call veterans that would.
I think so too.
From joining in on this. So, I definitely want to make sure I have all the details right. So I'll get with you afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
But I think we need to start advertising this as one of the things that we can do together out there on a Saturday.
Actually,
Sunday.
Yeah. But if you wanted to start off, it doesn't have to be. If anybody wants to start a walk in any city, any state, anywhere, you do it. Whatever day is good for you.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just make it consistent. If you're going to do it on a Tuesday night, every Tuesday, once a month, every Tuesday, do it on Tuesday. This way, everybody knows when to do it, and people get excited about it. People are like, "Oh, Walk the Bridge is coming up," and it may be their only chance to get out that day, that month, right? So they build themselves up and they come out, and for an hour, they get to decompress. They get to feel good. They get to meet a stranger. They get to bond with somebody else. And it's just a wonderful experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. I definitely want to add that to the calendar.
You talk about Jeffrey, he's a unique individual. He's an actor, and he's a Marine. And I've seen those pictures of him whenever I don't know how much he weighed, but he was huge, and now he's lean and mean. So
yeah, he was I think pushing almost 400 pounds.
Yeah,
and walking the bridge really got him healthy. He lost a lot of weight, and he is definitely in great shape. He, as he gets older, everybody's the knees go and everything else. But thank God, I bet you if it wasn't for that walk that he did, he wouldn't be with us anymore, because probably the weight would probably killed him.
And some people don't walk. Some people scuba dive across there, because there was that Navy SEAL McClendon, and he swam across that underwater. So
yep. Then we also have Gabriel Joseph. Have you met Gabriel?
I haven't.
Gabriel Joseph, Native American Indian.
He's Army.
He rucks.
Yeah.
He rucks. Yeah.
I have met him.
Yep. He was a Ranger. He was actually two of his family members' names are on the wall at in Rockwall. Aaron Solomon put their names on the wall in honor of him, because they took their lives, and they were both veterans. But he rucks in 100-pound. He's got a 100-pound ruck on his back every time. Doesn't matter what. He's done it in 110 degrees. He's done it in 0 degrees, and he makes it each and every time. He's a faithful person, and he raises a lot of awareness. If nobody's there, he'll walk. If 1,000 people are there, he'll walk. But it's all about his own mental health as well. So everybody has a different reason to walk.
We'll have to tie into that, Mary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, let's talk about your radio show, and tell us about what you talk about there. I mean, you have a variety of people. Pitbull, she's your co-host now, so.
Yes. She's amazing. I met Pitbull a few years ago. I actually had her on the show, because I was intrigued with the Battling Betties, the pinups, and that whole aspect. And I was like, I had her on the show, so we became friends in a whole bit. And then I was like, she's really into community. I would love to have her as a co-host on the show. And I asked her, and she was like, yes, I would love to get my voice out there, because it's all about uplifting everybody, and it's been a great teamwork. And now we've revamped the show to where the rubber meets the road. It's not only about bikers anymore, though we do uplift our biker community. Now we brought in the Jeep community, the classic cars, bicycles, mini bikes, the aviation. Because if you think about it, anytime rubber is hitting that road, we can make a difference together, right?
That's right.
What it is, right? It's the soles of your shoes. It's the rubber on your tires. Wherever that rubber meets the road, if we're doing it for a common purpose, we're making a difference, and we can do it all together. It's not sitting in your slippers on the couch. It's boots on the ground making a difference. And I'm getting chills because that's my passion. That really is.
No, we couldn't tell.
And that's every Wednesday.
It really that is really my passion about it. And I just love that so many people that I've been blessed to meet are like, you know what? I'm doing this. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go. And it shows the enthusiasm. And I just love it. I love it.
And it inspires a lot of people around the world, because you've got listeners in Europe and other places. So,
and that, and they're probably saving lives out there doing something. And one day it will all come together, and we'll all be one again, instead of this big divide.
That's right.
That social media has put us on.
And you and Samantha, you have your radio or your podcast every Monday night.
Yeah, Monday from 5 to 6.
Okay.
And then
it's a badge of honor.
A badge of honor TV. You can catch us on all the streaming platforms. We're powered by the OBBM network, so we're also on Roku and Apple TV. Which I have to speak to Susan tonight after this podcast, because I'd like to get Hometown Heroes on that network as well.
We talked about that the other day, and we'd like that.
Yeah, because I watch your show all the time. And man, you're like, today you had the great granddaughter of Davy Crockett?
The great four greats grandson of Davy Crockett. So
yeah, and as soon as I was, and you know what? Not being from Texas, I went to the Alamo just on a whim when we first got down here. It was like the day at Disney World, and then leave. But when she was speaking today on the show, I'm Googling, who Travis is, and that the letter that he wrote, that last letter that he wrote. And now I'm learning all history. I'm Googling stuff and reading the Wikipedia and reading the history of the Alamo. So your show sparked more knowledge in my brain to give me that, now I know I'm not talking out my butt. I can.
And Rick, when I was on the show, we had just had Bill Pugh on our show.
Yes.
And John, he just talked about how much that touched him.
Yeah. And
how he'd like to have Bill on his show.
Yeah.
Bill's a great guy, an amazing storyteller. It's like you were right beside him whenever, bombs were coming in.
I was at work and when you guys were on, and I listened to you guys, I put my phone on my desk and I got my ear pod in. I was so intrigued. I was like, I don't want to work anymore. I just want to watch this guy, because it was so interesting and so moving. And it's like when Don Graves tells us the stories, when you sit with him and you hear Don Graves' stories, and it means so much when you hear what these guys did at 17, 18 years old, 19 years old, right? How they fought and the things that they did for our country. And then you see a 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old today, and they're sitting there on their phone. And it's like, man, how did generations change so much, where we had these heroes that if it was not for them, you wouldn't be on this phone. We wouldn't be doing this broadcast. They fought for the freedom for us to be able to speak freely, We're not under a North Korea regime here. No censorship.
If it wasn't for them, the people on the west side of the United States would be speaking Japanese. The people on the east side would be speaking German. So
yeah, they don't realize that. And once again, goes back to our curriculums at school. They erased a lot of our history. They erased a lot of the stuff. Why people fought for this country. The patriotism is not there anymore. When people don't stand up for, it kills me every time I see college students stepping on an American flag in protest. It absolutely infuriates me that they'll step on the American flag and they'll bitch about capitalism and all this other stuff, but they got a $1,000 cell phone. They're wearing $800 sneakers, and they're denouncing capitalism. Well, you're the prime reason.
That's
you're
right.
buying all this stuff. If you go make your own clothes, go harvest your own food, then come and tell me. Then I'll give you the right to protest. But until you do that, you're the problem.
If I signed up to give and serve our country, and if it cost my life, that was part of it.
Yep.
So those people could have that right to trample the flag and burn the flag. But I'd kick their ass if I ever saw them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hard to watch some of what happens.
That's right.
But once again, we're built from that cloth where, and it's really hard to say that we want to respect everybody. We want to respect, we it's our opinions. It's our freedom it's our freedom to speak. It's their freedom to do what they do, not to make it right in our eyes. And I denounce it, but you know what? It kills me that they have the right to do that without any accountability.
Yeah, no cost. There was no cost to them.
And sometimes, me as an old man, growing up in the 50s and 60s, I see these people with all different kinds of color, hair, and everything else, and I start thinking, what's the matter with those people that they do that? And then I think, I wonder if people probably say that about me. Why do I have a ponytail? So whenever you point at somebody, you got four fingers pointing back. So,
yeah.
Well, listen, I the way I look at people and the way I judge people is on how you respond to me, right? If you have a closed mind, I'm not going to waste my time. So like I said, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, gay, trans, I don't care, right? As long as you do not bring your opinions onto me, I'll listen to them, I'll respect them, but respect mine as well. And then we can have a nice conversation.
Right.
That and that's what it's all about. It's respecting each other. And we've lost that, where you're trying to push this stuff on our children. You're trying to push different ideologies on our kids. Let them be kids. Let them grow up. Let them, learn life. Do not throw all this extra stuff on them. We're really hurting our children. We're hurting the next generation.
Yeah, we're definitely handicapping them. Let them go out and eat dirt and fall down off the swing and be a kid. Just be a kid.
I blame the participation trophy.
Yeah.
All right. To all the parents, not every kid is a winner. Sorry. Not every kid is a winner, but they could be.
Yeah, they could be good at something else. They could be good at this, bad at this. Lord knows there's a lot of things I'm not very good at.
I know. And you know what? Failure builds character.
Yep. If you're like me, you learned more in your failures than you ever did in your successes.
You ask any Elon Musk, any of the big billionaires out there, how many times they failed. The guys who invented Apple and all these guys that built stuff in their garage, they failed thousands of times. They didn't go crying, get a hot chocolate, and get a safe space. They moved forward. They persevered. They built themselves up and did better. Our kids don't know how to do that anymore.
No, they don't. What do you have coming up? You've got some events coming up?
Yeah, we have on April 16th, the Brotherhood for the Fallen of Fort Worth has their annual car show. Brotherhood of the Fallen, they go out and send officers to every funeral of our fallen throughout the country, and they help out our fallen officers' families by providing them some monetary supplement to get them through. So that's going to be on April 16th.
And that's a big car show. And it's right around the corner, Mary. It's right around the corner from Don Graves' house. So
yeah, that is built up very big. I went 2 years ago, and it was just the first half of the parking lot. Last year,
it was crowded.
The whole parking lot. Yeah, it was the whole parking lot.
Have you ever been to their golf tournament?
That I have not.
You got to come there because there's a bunch of Chicago cops that come down.
I'll have to check that out.
Those guys like to play golf and party. So
Chicago, it's just like if you brought a whole bunch of New York cops, they're gonna party.
Yeah.
So that's April 16th. You go on Brotherhood for the Fallen website, and you can see it's all free. You can make your donations. There'll be vendors there. There'll be music. I'll be playing some music out there for them. And then on April 26th, we have the Hops for Props.
Uh-huh.
That's at the Fort Worth Flying Museum.
Yep.
That's
Aviation Museum, right?
Aviation Museum. That benefits the museum and empowers a lot of the young kids to get into aviation. That's a craft beer festival. Then on let me rewind. April 6th, if you catch 99% Radio Network, we're going to be interviewing. We'll be at Prison Tattoos in Houston for meeting with DJ Daniels and his dad, and talking with him and talk about a strong child. He's had 13 brain surgeries. He's terminally ill, and he still perseveres and moves forward. Has a great outlook on life, and his dad is just a great role model because he's a veteran as well. So then on May 3rd, we're going to do, we'll jump forward now. May 3rd, we have Pinups and Pistons at Indian Motorcycle in Fort Worth.
That's right across the street from Birchman, where we meet for roll call. Where we met for roll call will be back in, I think, August. So
we hope so. That's also the same day as Don's birthday party. So
yes. Yes. I had some people go, well, I'm going to go to the birthday party, and then I'm going to come.
Then I'm going to come over there.
Yeah, Don turns 100, right?
He does.
Yes.
Yes. God bless. So that's going to benefit Hunting with Soldiers. The proceeds will benefit our combat veterans for hunting and fishing excursions to help them heal in their battles. And we're just going to keep going on. We're going to support other community events. We're out there. If you know of something you want us to cover that maybe mainstream media is not covering, we'll be out there trying to cover it and highlighting it. And you can catch, just email us at 99%radionetwork.com or at live on the 99 at Gmail. And you want to come on the show and promote yourself? That's what we're here for.
You do a good job at that. You do a good job at doing Facebook Live too. Everywhere you go, you're telling people what's going on. So,
well, you try. You guys do the same thing, and Rick, you're at every event, and you're taking pictures and you're highlighting those. I mean, can you imagine if you went to the boxing match? I would have never been able to experience that boxing match if I didn't see those pictures. So you bring those photos to everybody, and they're like, wow, I want to go next year, or I want to make those next events. So it's the little things we do, just getting out there. It's where the rubber meets the road. We make a difference.
Yeah.
Mary, what kind of things do you have coming up?
I love it. Well, so boy, we've got several things coming up. The Medal of Honor Museum is open officially, and there are so many things going on for folks that haven't yet gone out there. They absolutely need to go out to that Medal of Honor Museum. Holy cow, is it something?
Did you go out there?
Oh yeah. Went for the so I'm a veteran Cornerstone member, so I got to have a sneak peek preview on the 24th. And April 13th, the Air Power Foundation is going to have an event out there from 12 to 3. It's called Celebrating the Brave, and they're going to have, I think, at least 6 Medal of Honor recipients, and Jeremy Locke will be the MC for that event. He is a 7-time military photographer of the year. He's quite the photojournalist, a pretty amazing guy. Does really great work. So that event has still got some tickets. There's not very many left, and they're a little expensive, but for what you get, you get to go and be a part of that historic first few weeks of the museum being open. So get out there and take a look. We've got it on our Facebook page for a roll call. So if anyone wants more details, they can find it there. April 25th, we are going to have our luncheon on base, and the RSVP line is open now, and it will not be open too tremendously much longer because it's already been open a few days. But we've got to close it early because when we're going on base, we have to get stuff to the base a little bit quicker. So if folks want to come to that luncheon and experience it, they're going to try to have at least 3 static displays out there that folks can take pictures in front of. And the lunch is always great. Our speaker is going to be Tom Starr, who actually wrote a book. I think I have it right here somewhere. They Never Heard the Final Shot, The Truth About Vietnam. And Tom, for those that don't know, is one of the people that started the, what do you call it, Rick? The Bowl for the Brave.
Okay.
He was part of that.
The Armed Forces Bowl.
The Armed Forces Bowl, bringing the Armed Forces Bowl here to Fort Worth. So he'll be our speaker at that event. And there will be hopefully a couple hundred local base personnel interacting with our veterans. And it should be really, really a good time. So that RSVP line is open. Better get in there quick. Get your RSVP in once it closes. And we turn that list in. If you're not on it, you're just not getting on base unless you have access via either yourself or somebody else that can drive you on. That's it. The 8th of May, Rick, we're doing war stories again, right? So
that's right.
You have a little bit more details than I do about who's going to speak at that.
Well, we're going to have some Vietnam. It's Vietnam veterans who are going to hear speak. And so we're going to have one Vietnam veteran that was on our podcast just a few weeks ago, Lieutenant Colonel Bruce Stacy, 2 Silver Stars, several Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars. He was on the ground. So, and I hope it'd be nice if we could have Bill Pugh talk. And then we may have somebody that was in Vietnam that was a helicopter pilot for the Vietnamese there also. So we'll have about 4 speakers, and we'll have a meal. And it's a joint, one of those joint deals that Mary and I like to do. Yeah. We've got roll call, we've got the Fort Worth Air Power Council, and we've got Freedom Mobility. And I'm sure in all those organizations, John, you'll know several of those people. So we'd like for you to come to it too. So
I would love to. I would love to.
Yeah, we do that at the Haltom City American Legion, and we'll have that out there where there will be an RSVP line, and it's relatively low cost actually for what you get. It's really paying for the hall and paying for the meal, and it really is something to hear the interaction of the different veterans and the different stories. They're all in Vietnam doing different jobs, and now you get to kind of see how the pieces of that puzzle all come together. It's really, and we're doing a Vietnam focus. In case people haven't noticed, a lot of our stuff this year is Vietnam because of the 50th anniversary
of the fall of Saigon. So,
yeah.
Well, Bill's going to be there. I'm going to be there. I want to just sit and listen to his stories.
And last year we had it, and we had Mr. Vincent. He was a Korean Navy veteran, and the story he told about going on shore leave or something and buying this set of dishes for his wife. And I think he had to climb up the rope with the dishes, to get back on the ship.
He was late. He was late getting back to the ship, or the transport, and so he had all these dishes, and he's trying to carry. You could just, and he's not a little guy; he's a big
old guy. So,
oh my,
a lot of great stuff going on. So,
yeah.
But John, I want to start doing a lot more stuff with you. We need to kind of start sharing all these different things, just like the bridge walk. We need to share that with roll call, and just to get the word out about the post-traumatic stress and all the other things that we're involved in with you and Sam, and with the 99% radio show, and with Mary and roll call, and
the Battling Betties.
Yeah, the Battling Betties.
They're very good to roll call.
They get around.
Have been amazing helping us.
Yeah, she was one of our early guests on our podcast. Fishbowl was. Yeah.
Yeah, she and that's just it. Cross promotion is the best thing. I was going to say, send me all your stuff. I'm going to play it on. I'll share it on Wednesday. Get more listeners to hear about it. We get the Bettys more involved with a lot of stuff that you got coming out, and we'll make these events bigger and better, and get the word out.
Yeah, and of course we can't forget May 3rd, 12 to 3, Don's birthday, his 100th birthday, and in a conversation today again with a community group that I belong to that consists of Air Power Foundation, Air Power Council, Holidays and Heroes, and a few others. We decided that instead of people trying to decide to bring a gift for Don, because he certainly needs no gifts, that we're going to set up a QR code that folks can scan, and we're going to have whatever we bring in. Maybe we can give more than one scholarship, but we're going to have a person or two hopefully get a scholarship in Don's honor, since he's a man who needs nothing. So it was a great idea that was brought up. And like I said, if he does get things and his daughter doesn't want them in the house, and she gives them to me, and I have to figure out what to do with them. So I think it's a great idea to do a scholarship.
That is
our community call to what we can do. Again, like we're doing here, working together to share our resources and build our community and take care of our community more than anything.
And pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Absolutely.
And, I was thinking back to the first time I met you, and we were over across the street in the parking lot by Ranger Stadium. And we were doing an event with Mary and Phil Alvarado with the Peace Officers.
Yes.
Peace Officers Angel Fund.
Foundation.
And they had that old police car there. And, that's where I first met you.
Yes.
And that was a good afternoon.
She just retired. She finally,
her
and Phil finally retired and moved the reins off to somebody else, which is great. Yeah. Another amazing foundation, the Peace Officer Foundation. And I thought we met at Freedom Mobility with with what's her name? It slipped my mind, and she'll kill me if I forget her name.
Lisa Ramsey.
Lisa, sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that was after that. That was after that. But it's just that people like Mary Alvarado taking the most horrible thing that ever happened in their life when their son was killed. He was a policeman at the DFW airport. He stopped. He was a motorcycle policeman. Stopped to somebody and a car hit him and killed him, and to take that and be able to help these smaller police departments across the state with whenever they have a problem, or an officer needs hospitalization or money or things like that, because the big departments, San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth, Dallas, they have the resources. They have huge departments, and the officers can help the other officers. But these little departments like Sampson Park or Haltom City, they have needs. So just great people like that come across our paths.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why we like to highlight them, because, without our voices, they won't have it.
That's right.
They won't get the recognition. They won't get the money and the funds to help other people. So rising tides lifts all boats. That's
right.
Amen.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on our Hometown Heroes podcast. I'm sure our paths will cross pretty quick.
Oh, yes. And thank you guys once again. I appreciate it.
I love you like a brother. You're a great American. You're a great American.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate
it. Love it. Love it.
Well, thank everybody that's been a part of this. And we just really love our listeners and our fans that watch us every week. And we'll see y'all next week on Hometown Heroes.